What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another video. So something finally happened yesterday, and I don't think a lot of people really understood or grasped the severity of it. So I want to address the ramifications of what happened and what is going to happen moving forward. First off, thank you guys for watching today's video. If you enjoy these stimulus updates and daily news reports, do me a favor, go ahead, hit that like button, as it really does help out the channel. But let's discuss what we're gonna actually go over today, okay? We're gonna talk about how Omicron is now the dominant strain in the United States. We're gonna address how President Biden plans to send out 500 million rapid at-home tests to Americans as a result of the surging case counts. We're gonna talk about how Senator Joe Manchin doesn't really know which way to go regarding the Build Back Better Act, but knows that passing a bill that provides money to people not contributing economically is simply out of the question. We also are going to touch on how U.S. families worry that the end of the child tax credit payments will most likely cause their children to go hungry. We know that House Democrats are wanting Democratic leadership to shift the strategy from the $1.75 trillion infrastructure bill to something smaller, to, according to them, at least have something to show for it. And we know that the NIH director says that we could potentially have a cure for the common cold as a result of our COVID vaccine. So a lot of stuff to discuss today, but let's get right into it. So Omicron is now the dominant strain in the United States, and because this, President Biden is going to announce today that he's going to be sending out 500 million rapid at-home COVID tests as a result. Here's what I can tell you on that. President Biden doesn't want to wait. He wants to get these tests out as quickly as possible. Unlike Europe, though, who sent one test out to every single resident, earlier this month, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki was asked if this is something the United States is considering. And she simply said, well, you want us to send one test to every single American? That's going to be pretty expensive. And then what happens when those one tests are used and are done with? What happens then? And nobody really has had a response. So here's what's going to happen. The United States and President Biden are not just going to send one test to every single American. They're going to send a test to people that request them. And these tests will be sent out sometime in January. The hope is that the chances are we're going to see higher case counts after the holidays, right? Where it's December 21st today. The expectation is over the next 7 to 14 days, we're going to see case counts go up. If they do, having these rapid at-home tests will be great for people, because right now, if you go to Walgreens or CVS or any pharmacy, they're very hard to come by. So this will hopefully limit the spread of the Omicron variant. What we also know is that in South Africa, just today, they're reporting, and again, South Africa is where the Omicron variant originated from. But just today, they're reporting that over the past few days, their case counts have dropped, right? That's good news. But here's the issue. As their case counts dropped, their hospitalizations increased along with deaths. So that's not great news there. Their positivity rate, though, has stayed somewhat flat. It's still very elevated. I think it's like 28%. It's still very elevated, but it's somewhat flat. So the big news, though, is that in the charts that we're seeing, it shows about a 1 week lag time where the cases spike, and then 7 to 10 days later, we see hospitalizations and deaths increase as well. So it's very interesting what's happening, but as I know more regarding that, I promise I will fill you in on all the latest news and updates. One thing I can tell you, there's a lot coming out. There's a lot that we didn't know. Remember back in March of 2020, nobody knew what to expect. Everybody's waiting for the CDC to provide some type of update or guidance as to, do we actually lock down in our homes? Can we run an AC, right? Is that acceptable? Can we go to grocery stores? Do we have to wear a mask, right? All these different things. We're kind of going back to that same spot is, well, what's the guidance on Omicron? And again, as I know more, I promise I will fill you in on all latest news and updates. Here's what else I can tell you. Senator Joe Manchin, he doesn't know which way to take the Build Back Better Act. He knows he doesn't want to just support the bill that was given to him, because that, according to him, he says is not a fiscally responsible use of money. But here's what I can tell you. He wants to pass a bill but he doesn't want to pass the bill that President Biden has put in front of him. He wants to pass a bill, according to him, where we're not just giving away money, that the people that we are giving money to actually earned that benefit. So people are working. Here's the problem. He wants people to contribute economically into the system in order to get the benefits. This means that if you got the child tax credit payments, but yet you do not work, well, you may not get them ever again if they were to get approved. And as of right now, it's not looking likely. He doesn't want people to get paid leave just because they have a job for a few days. That's not acceptable. There needs to be restrictions. He doesn't want to see Medicare expanded because, for one, he says the Medicare system needs to be pretty much shored up first before we expand it. So again, a lot of different provisions that he wants adjusted, but at the same time, some of these things that he's bringing up are things that he didn't even consider passing in his own private bid or proposal to President Biden. So we're gonna see what happens there. One thing I can tell you though is that U.S. families are really worried that the end of the child tax credit payments will cause their children to go hungry. And according to a recent study, about 3.6 million children were actually pulled out of poverty because of the payments in October. Okay, 3.6 million children. Again, we already have seen over 50% of children get pulled out of poverty because of these $250 and $300 child tax credit payments. But, still more could come out. But here's the problem. And I want to bring this up because I saw on on YouTube the other day that a YouTuber went out and asked people in LA, do you support the child tax credit payments? Overwhelmingly, every single person said yes. Yes, I support these. Okay. And he asked, and how much do you think they should be every single month? And one person said, 500, 1,000. And he gave him a little sheet. Okay, and then write down how much of your income you are willing to donate to this fund in order to fund this program. And every single person said, no, I'm not willing to donate to this. I don't want this to come out of my money, but we need more. And that's the problem, is that, yes, and I feel this. I feel the same way. A lot of people do, but I would pay a little more in taxes to provide for more people to not go hungry, for children not to go hungry, right? And I'm okay with that. But some people aren't. That's the issue. Is when we pass more bills, when we pass more different provisions like the child tax credit payments, the money has to come from somewhere, and that's what Senator Joe Manchin is pretty much saying is if we get these more people to work, then they are paying in taxes into the system. So then, yes, it would be easier to go and provide more benefits to children, families, or so on. So we'll see what happens. But as of right now, the child tax credit payments are not looking likely to go forward at this time. Here's what we do know though. House Democrats, who originally voted for the $1.75 trillion Build Back Better Act, they are saying that we need to go back to the drawing board, bring Senator Joe Manchin back to the negotiation table, and let's conjure up something a little bit smaller, because they say we at least need something to show for this. And here's the reason why they say we need something to show. It is because they passed a bill knowing full well it was never going to pass in the Senate as is. So the problem is, if they go back to their districts and they talk to their constituents and say, hey, you need to vote for me in this upcoming midterm election because, well, I voted for this $1.75 trillion bill, their constituents can easily be like, well, you voted for a bill that you knew was never going to pass. And so that's the problem. House Democrats are now saying, let's get our Democratic leaders to shift the focus from a $1.75 trillion bill to something a little bit smaller. Now, the expectation, this is something that I told, I was kind of just bringing up months ago, was I didn't think a $1.75 trillion bill was even going to pass. At that time, according to multiple experts, many reports, 1.4 was most likely going to be the number. $1.4 trillion, not 1.75. Here's the reason why that $1.4 trillion is so important. 1.4 trillion would not even fully fund the child tax credit payments for 10 years. Paid family leave could be included. We could get a little bit of climate change included, but that's going to be about it. Senator Joe Manchin stated yesterday, or at least the reports from CNN and the Washington Post stated that paid family leave, the climate change, and the ACA, the Affordable Care Act subsidies or expansion was something that he was considering. But here's what you need to keep in mind. That was a roughly $1.7, $1.8 trillion bill that he was proposing, but again, it came with a lot of his restrictions and requirements. So we'll see what happens. But what I can tell you at this time is that there's multiple lawmakers considering different bills that ultimately one of those could become the bill that we end up passing, or what President Biden calls the Build Back Better Act. So we'll see. Now, here's something else I want to bring to your attention. Today, Dr. Anthony Fauci stated that there is a possibility that the CDC could end up reducing the recommended isolation period for people with COVID who are asymptomatic. Okay? He says this is extremely important and it's more critical for healthcare workers and hospital workers and staff. He stated that keeping healthcare workers out of work for too long could actually turn into a major problem if there's a huge run on hospitals due to overwhelming number of people contracting COVID. He stated that yes, this is something that is being considered to reduce the isolation periods from currently it is 10 days to maybe something closer to 5 to 7. The reason for this shift is because he is saying that we need to make sure that we just don't get overrun. Because, and this is something that I pointed out the other day as well, is if, let's say, you work at a grocery store and there's, let's say, 40 people there, okay? Let's say there's 40 people there, and out of those 40 people, let's say 40% of those people contract COVID, okay? 40 people, 40% of the people that are there contract COVID. That means 16 people out of those 40 have COVID. If they all have COVID at the exact same time, that means 16 people aren't able to work. What if that store needs at least 30 people every single day in order to function, in order to operate? Well, that means you only have, if you take away the 16 from the 40, you only have, was that 24 workers, yet you need 30 to fully function and operate? That's an issue. What does the store do? Do they try to hire new employees? Probably not. Do they shut down or limit their hours? Yeah, most likely. So that's the other issue, and this is something I've been bringing up for the past week or so, is that Omicron is going to be more infectious, and according to initial reports, it was less severe, but just today, multiple reports are now stating, this is actually coming from Reuters as well, that Omicron is just as severe as Delta. So initial reports stated it was less severe, it's just more infectious, but now the reports from Reuters are telling us it is just as severe as Delta, but it's more infectious. That is where things get completely flipped upside down. That is where things are going to turn into even more pressing crisis. Okay, so we'll see what happens there, but again, I will be here every step of the way. I will fill you in on all the latest news and updates. One thing I do want to address though is yesterday the National Institutes of Health director, or outgoing director, Francis Collins, he stated that boosters are going to be the key to fighting the Omicron variant. He also stated that there is COVID in the common cold. He actually mentioned this on a radio show. It's called the Bobby Bones Show. But he stated that COVID is in the common cold and has been for years. He also said that if our vaccines get good enough, we could potentially have a cure for the common cold. So hopefully that's the case, but who knows? So again, as always, this is what we know as of right now. This is what we know regarding the stimulus package or upcoming infrastructure bill. This is all that we're hearing regarding the new Omicron variant. Yes, it finally happened. Omicron is the dominant strain here in the United States. Some were saying that this could potentially be good news. However, according to Reuters just a short while ago, no. This isn't great news because Omicron is just as severe as Delta. So again, thank you guys for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Stay safe, and I'll see you guys on the next.